This is Surrender to Win, a look at what's holding you back from experiencing a life of peace and joy that God intends for us all. Your host is Brian Anderson, the program director and a substance abuse counselor at Rob's Ranch, a Christ-centered residential substance abuse treatment facility for men in Purcell, Oklahoma. This is Surrender to Win.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Man, I'm having a little technical issue here. Everything's running a little slow. I apologize for that. On this Good Friday, I hope everyone has had a good week so far. And, I hope you guys have a great Easter coming up. I apologize, man. That intro music of mine is going way too slow. It's kind of annoying, actually. And I was trying to do some Facebook Live stuff on here, and that didn't work either. So I was just having all kinds of technical problems today. But you know what? We're going to go ahead and go with the show, and we'll keep going at it. And I got all kinds of stuff going on here. Hold on a second. This is awesome. There we go. I'm sorry about that. I had two computers going and my phone going all at the same time, and so, man, it was just an abysmal failure. I apologize for that, but hey, you know what? On internet radio, I guess we can just kind of do everything, and hopefully I won't get fired for it. So anyway, hey, happy Friday. Happy Good Friday to you guys. Today used to be any ordinary little holiday, I guess, and maybe not even a holiday. I didn't think too much about it in my old life. I just, okay, Good Friday, great. That was really something, that religious people dealt with, and Easter was coming up on Sunday, and so, I get some candy and go Easter egg hunting, maybe go to church. It really wasn't that big of a deal to me. And today, the full weight and the full impact of what Jesus Christ did for us, all of us, whether we choose to believe it or not, but the full impact of what Jesus Christ did for us, that we recognize and think about today on Good Friday, it single-handedly changed my life. I have a much, much, much greater understanding and level of gratitude that is just indescribable, trying to even just barely comprehend what Jesus Christ did for me, for you, and for all of us on the day of his crucifixion, and which ultimately leads to Sunday, where he rose from the dead. He truly has risen, and the mere fact that has happened, and what I believe deep in my heart, has single-handedly changed my life. And that fact for me of what Jesus Christ did for me and for my life kind of goes into today's topic. And today's topic is we're going to talk about the characteristics of love and relationships and sex addicts. It is my belief that every single one of us, human beings on the face of this earth, we have this hole inside our heart. And we go through life trying to fill it up with something, anything. And that goes from money, cars, houses, jobs, titles, materialism, clothes. Then we get down into drugs, alcohol, work, sports, and today's topic of the characteristics of love and sex and relationship addicts. We can use love and relationships and sex trying to fill that hole inside our heart. And it's no different. The premise behind it, the motivation behind it, is no different than the drug addict, the alcoholic, the workaholic, trying to fill that hole inside their heart. And there's a millennial, centuries of discussion and debate of people trying to answer the question of what fills my soul, what fills my heart, what makes me feel complete. I hear it frequently, people saying that somebody else makes them feel complete. You hear it on TV shows, you hear it on radio songs, you hear it in conversations, and somebody talks about, this person completes me. I was lost until I found this person. And I'm not suggesting that somebody can't complete a part of our life, but a person, a human being, cannot fill that hole that's in our heart. That what I believe only Christ himself, God himself, can fill. So today we're going to look at what some of those characteristics are. And maybe you know somebody who meets some of these criteria, meets some of these characteristics. Maybe you will find that you have some similarity with these characteristics. And none of this is to suggest that anybody listening to this is a love or relationship or a sex addict. The intent of this is just for you to take a look at yourself. And maybe, just maybe, if your life, if your quality of life is not the way you want it, then maybe you can identify something that needs to be changed. And that's kind of the purpose of this show each week, is to bring up different topics that we can all look at, and maybe some of them resonate with us and some of them don't. So as we go through these, ask yourself if any of these apply to you, or maybe somebody that you know and that you care about. One last thing before we get into that. Today is April 19th, and for people all across the United States and the world, but especially Oklahomans, April 19th signifies a pretty dark, tragic day in 1995. Today is the 24th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing memorial down at the Murrah building, and I had a intimate involvement with that. I was down at the Oklahoma City bombing the first 2 days after it happened, helping out, and I had some family members, one family member in particular that worked in the federal building, and by the grace of God, he was not killed that day. And I knew several of the people that were unfortunately killed, and I just want to take a moment and say thank you to all of the first responders, to all of the families, to all of the survivors of the Oklahoma City bombing. That was a very dark and painful day, and it changed a lot for a lot of people. But we did rebuild, and we have healed, and we've had some amazing stories come out of it, and some amazing stories of forgiveness. And I just want to say thank you to everybody across the United States and across the world that provided and gave their support to us Oklahomans during that time. It was absolutely unbelievable. I remember being downtown, kind of where the collection point was, where all of the supplies and food and everything was kind of meeting. It was in this parking garage, and you couldn't walk by without somebody asking you if you needed something, somebody trying to give you some food, somebody trying to give you work gloves or something to help. And it was just absolutely unbelievable. And I will forever be grateful for everyone who helped, and for all the first responders, and just anybody and everybody that helped out with that. So on this Good Friday, I just want to express my gratitude. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get in to what some of those characteristics of love, relationship, and sex addicts are. One of the things here that is a common trait for people that have problems with love and relationships, sex addiction, is that the individual has very few healthy boundaries. And you'll see them becoming sexually involved and sometimes emotionally attached as well to people without really knowing them. Maybe it's somebody they met on Tinder, and a week later they're intimately involved. Maybe they even got intimately involved the night they met them, and now all of a sudden they're in love, and they go around telling everybody that they found the one, that this person is incredible, and oh, they complete me, and all of the rhetoric that you hear. And it's because they have very few, if any, healthy boundaries. They're looking for somebody or something instantly to fill that hole, to fill that gap. And this pattern just keeps repeating over and over and over again. Another one is somebody that can show the characteristics of the love and the relationships and the sex addiction is that they have a fear of abandonment. They have a fear of being alone. They stay in and they return to painful and destructive relationships. Do you find yourself getting in the same type of relationship with the same personality type of an individual over and over and over again? Maybe it's, if you're a woman and you keep dating guys, you keep going out with guys that cheat on you over and over again. They lie to you. They do things that are hurtful. Yet you just keep getting in those same types of relationships. And then you ask yourself, well, is it me? Why do I keep getting the same thing happen to me? Take a look at yourself. Is there a part of you that is afraid of being alone? Do you fear abandonment? Do you conceal your dependency on other people? Do you make excuses why this person's going to be different? We repeat the same patterns. We often say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, yet we expect a different outcome. People with love and relationship and sex addiction, their dependency on other people supersedes their own self. They can often isolate and alienate from friends. You see that person get into a really, really intense relationship really quick, really fast. And all of a sudden your friend disappears. You don't hear from them. They spend all of their time with that individual. And then as soon as the relationship is in a downward spiral or it becomes destructive, then you see them come back and they are complaining and they're given the same, talking about the same hurts and the same sadness with the relationship and the same chaos that goes back and forth and back and forth. And then they break up with that individual. And then in a very short period of time, you see them go right back into a new relationship and they disappear again. And this time this is the one. This is the one that, they get me. This is my soulmate. And they've known each other for 2 weeks. And this is some signs of that individual that is afraid to be alone. They have abandonment issues. And they keep looking for something to fill that hole. And they just repeat the same patterns over and over and over again. Look, I say all the time that if you want to know what your future looks like, look at the people that you hang out with and look at your friends. Look at the people that you get into relationships with. And that's your future. And so if you want a different future, then you're going to have to look at that. You're going to have to change the people that you associate with, that you get into relationships with. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back on the other side, I'm going to keep talking about some of those characteristics of love and relationships and sex addicts and what that looks like, and maybe it touches some of you guys. So we'll see you here on the other side.
Are you a small business looking to enter the advertising market without breaking your budget? Well, I've got the solution to your problem. Crossover Radio. We are an internet radio station with worldwide reaching possibility, but locally embedded in the Bethany and War Acres area in Oklahoma. We have competitive advertising packages to help you reach new customers and grow your business. If you're a well-established business, we're here for you as well. We're able to handle all the advertising needs your business requires. We're also launching a crossover radio sports station in May of 2019 that will cover pro, high school sports, and everything in between, doubling your reach and advertising capabilities. To partner with Crossover Radio and grow your business, please contact us at contact@thecrossoveronline.com or by phone at 405-494-0234. Crossover Radio, radio with a purpose.
I just love it out here. It's so peaceful, and you get chills when you come out, and you feel the presence of God, man. You know, it's something, and the feelings, that's something a lot of us have never had.
Opiates, meth, alcohol. Are you addicted? Rob's Ranch is a non-profit, Christ-based treatment center for men located in central Oklahoma. Rob's Ranch uses proven treatment methods and a program of spiritual growth to give men the opportunity to restore their lives and their relationships. Every member on staff has been there and are now in recovery themselves. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction to drugs or alcohol, please call 405-253-3838 or find Rob's Ranch on Facebook or online at robsranch.org.
They're just so accepting, so caring. It'll change your life if you're not careful.
You're listening to Surrender to Win with Brian Anderson on Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
Bigger than me, I might be outmatched, outsized, the underdog in the fight of my life. Is this so crazy to
Well, welcome back, everybody.
that you gave me the stars?
And I'm just having all kinds of audio challenges here. I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but I've got a kind of a funky phaser sound going on with my outro and commercial music and stuff, but I'll deal with it. It just sounds kind of weird. So if it does sound weird on your end, man, I apologize. I'll figure it out. It is one of those days that I'm okay with it. So, before we left on the break, I was talking about some of those characteristics of love and relationships and sex addicts and how it's common for an individual that is experiencing this to have some fear of abandonment and loneliness. And the next area that hey, I got a cool message here that says radio sounds good on their end. So thanks, Nate. I appreciate it. So as we go forward on here, we're going to keep talking about, one of the characteristics I see also is, some of those individuals that they have a fear of sexual and emotional deprivation. They use sex, they use the butterfly feeling, that intense feeling of a new relationship, that emotional high that people get. They use that to feel complete. They use it to feel that hole inside of them. And again, that's substituting something else. And it's my belief that, we're substituting that hole that Jesus Christ fills, that God fills. And we're using sex and emotional feelings to fill that hole. So with an individual that has a love, a relationship, a sex problem, addiction, they may have fear of not having enough sex, not having that emotional high. And they'll compulsively pursue other people, or maybe involve themselves in one relationship after another. Kind of like what I talked about just before the break about fearing abandonment. So they pursue these relationships over and over, one after the other. And it's not uncommon to see people that will have multiple relationships going on one time, whether it's just emotional, online, sexual liaisons. They're going to have multiple, or could have multiple relationships at a time. And so that again is filling a void, feeling a need. So another characteristic we see is we sometimes often confuse love with neediness and physical and sexual attraction, maybe even pity for the other person, the need to rescue somebody else or to be rescued. In my practice as a therapist talking with people, I will hear individuals say, hey, I thought I could fix them. The wonderful woman who goes after the bad boy, thinking, oh, I'll be able to change him. I'll be able to fix him. And it's not just, specific to the female trying to rescue the bad boy. I work here at Rob's Ranch, which is a male-only, Christ-centered substance abuse residential treatment center. And the men I work with, some of them get into the rescuer-rescuee mode. They get into relationships with females that are the bad girl female, and they believe they can rescue her. I see very frequently both the male and the female are both active drug addicts. And as the male starts to get better while he's here at our facility, he starts to get a delusion that he's going to be able to go and rescue his girlfriend or the woman that he's in a relationship with, and rescue her from her addiction, from her alcoholism. And we can't rescue anybody. We simply are not that powerful. We're not in control. God can, but we can't. But it's an illusion to think that we can rescue somebody. My first show I did for the Surrender to Win show, I talked about control. And codependency was another show. And so it is about these relationships and that rescuer. And we confuse being needed, or we confuse feeling needed by somebody with love. Now, don't get me wrong. When we love somebody, we do feel needed. We do feel appreciated. We do feel loved from them. But this is a neediness that is not healthy. And we confuse that physical and sexual attraction with love. And that's a problem. And it creates behavioral problems. It creates continual problems over and over in our life. And that's what I'm talking about here is the quality of your life not where you want it to be? And what are you doing, or what is somebody in your life doing that keeps those problems continuing? So if we can identify the problems, then we can do something about it. Another characteristic with love and relationship and sex addicts is they'll often feel empty and incomplete when they're alone. And you might notice as I talk about these different characteristics that they all kind of have a similar thread that runs through them. And that is true. And not every single person that has a problem with love and relationships and sex, etc., is going to have every one of these characteristics. A lot of people do have all these characteristics, but some people just have some of these characteristics. So I hope you don't get too wrapped around the axle that, hey, I don't have all of those, or whoever I know doesn't have all those. Any of these characteristics can become problematic, and any of these characteristics do cause problems in relationships and the peace and serenity and quality of life that somebody might have. So does that person feel completely empty and incomplete when they're alone? And even though they may even fear intimacy and commitment to other people, for that could go into a whole nother slew of things, abandonment issues, attachment issues, etc., that they may fear intimacy and commitment to another person. But without being in a relationship, without having somebody else there, they also feel empty and incomplete. And so they're going to, again, continually search for relationships and sexual contacts, sexual relationships with other people, with strangers. I hate to admit it, folks, but these apps like Tinder and Plenty of Fish and all the other ones that are like that, the only reason those things exist is for people who have some of these characteristics. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody truly found the love of their life and they've got an incredibly healthy relationship, and it's a God-centered relationship, and they met each other on Tinder or Plenty of Fish or all the other little apps out there. I don't know. And really, the only reason I know about these apps is because of my clientele I work with. Tell me about it. But, that emptiness and that incompleteness is filled by these sexual contacts and these unhealthy relationships. So another characteristic is what I call sexualizing guilt, loneliness, anger, shame, fear, envy, all those negative emotions. And so sexualizing those. So what I mean by that is, say something happens and I'm feeling lonely or guilty, I'm angry about something, I'm ashamed of something, I fear, envy, all of those negative emotions. Something happens that causes those feelings, and that individual goes and seeks a sexual relationship, a sexual contact, or they go look for an emotional relationship with somebody really, really quick. And those things substitute for actual nurturing care and support. So they revert to sex, they revert to emotional dependency on somebody else, and it is used as a diversion. It's used as a deflection away from the pain of anger and shame and fear and guilt and loneliness and loss. The sex, the emotional dependency, it's a way that we deny what's going on. We deflect from it. And that's where we see the continuations of the things I talked about a little while ago, of the destructive relationship over and over and over again. And, unless you take a look at it, unless you stop and ask yourself, why do I keep repeating these same toxic and destructive behaviors? What is the purpose? Listen, all behavior serves a purpose, or the human being wouldn't do it. All behavior serves a purpose. And if the behavior is creating destructiveness and pain and loss, ask yourself the question, why am I doing it? We don't just do these random things and all of a sudden, well, geez, I'm just the world's most unluckiest person. I just keep dating, going out with the biggest jerk ever. I just keep marrying all the wrong guys. Something is going on. So we're going to take another break, and when we come out on the other side of that break, I'll keep going on with the characteristics of love and sex and what that looks like, and we'll keep going. I'll see you on the other side.
You're listening to Surrender to Win on Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
January 2nd, 2007.
Hey, this is Big Nate, Program Director here at Crossover Radio, and I just wanted to let you know that Crossover Radio is now the flagship station for Bethany Bronco Athletics. Sponsorships will be filling up fast, so to join in and promote your business, contact the station by phone or by text at 405-494-0234 for more information. And go Broncos!
My name is George Schaefer.
And I'm Meredith Schaefer. Together, we are founders of STORM, Strategic Treatment Options and Recovery Ministries.
And we provide an individualized blueprint of recovery for both the addict and their family members, regardless of the situation in which they find themselves.
And starting in March 2019, we are opening up a sober living home for men called the Storm Shelter.
For more information, please visit our website at www.storminc.org.
Or you can call our office line, 405-503-7442. Join us in fighting for the eradication of the epidemic of addiction.
On live, worldwide, 24/7, 365. It's Crossover Radio, radio with a purpose.
You're listening to Surrender to Win with your host, Brian Anderson, on Crossover Radio.
Radio with a purpose.
Achilles and his gifts, Spider-Man's control, and Batman with his fist.
You know, I kind of hate to admit it, but I really like this song. I don't know why, but I really like this song. So, hey, before we left on the break here, I was talking about the sexualizing guilt and loneliness and anger and shame, using using physical intimacy and emotional relationships to cover up those negative feelings that we've got, those negative feelings that we have. And this all goes back to truly trying to find something to fill that hole inside our heart. And, you know, what better day to talk about this hole, this gap inside our hearts than on Good Friday. The day that my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ died on the cross for me. I will tell you, having been a 3-tour combat veteran and 22 years in the Army, I saw some amazing things that people did. Other soldiers, other people did for each other, and the sacrifices that some people made for their fellow veteran, for their fellow brother or sister, is just absolutely unbelievable. And it just always made my heart filled with love when I saw those things and heard about them. And when I became a true believer, when I finally surrendered and gave my life to Christ, and I realized what He did for all of us, me, you, and everybody on the face of the planet, regardless if they believe it or accept it or not, it's just, indescribable. And I want to go back to something I said right before the break, and that was all behavior serves a purpose. And, historians and scholars and intellects and other religions, they've all said, hey, this Jesus Christ guy, he lived. He was here. These things that are accounted for in the Bible and other religious books and history books happened. There was a guy named Jesus who was crucified on a cross. Now, if you go back to what I said before the break, and I said all human behavior serves a purpose. All human behavior serves a purpose, or we wouldn't do it. My question to non-believers out there, for people who think that the Bible and all this was just some outlandish fairy tale, it was just a really cute story or whatever, and we look at all the people who have said that this did happen, why would Jesus have done that? If all behavior serves a purpose, what was the purpose behind him doing that? What did he gain himself by putting himself through that? And my argument to anybody is he personally gained nothing. Nothing. He did it all for us. And when I finally accepted that into my heart, and I understood to the best of my ability the magnitude of that, it was life-changing, literally, and eternity-changing. So if you just keep the psychological, the psychology behind it, just keep that in your mind, that all human behavior serves a purpose, or we wouldn't do it. What could have been the possible purpose of Jesus going through what he went through? What did he, or what was he hoping to gain for himself? And my answer is nothing. He did it for us. So on this Good Friday and this Easter, I hope that will resonate with at least one person out there. And it will touch you the way that it touched and changed my life. So let's keep on going with some of these characteristics. Now we get into some of the, maybe a little bit more of the darker side of relationships and sex and emotional relationships. People with these relationship addictions, love addiction, sex addiction, you will see some of those individuals using sex and emotional involvement to manipulate and control others. I have talked to some people, and I know sometimes the first thing that comes up to somebody's mind is maybe a female who uses sex, maybe a wife that uses sex with her husband, and as a manipulation tool. Well, gee, if you do this, then I will have an intimate relationship with you. Maybe it's in relationships, girlfriend, boyfriend. And it's not just women who do this. Guys do this as well, so I'm not picking on the women. Men do this as well. I see it just as much with the clients that I work with. But they use emotional relationships. They use the physical act of sexual intimacy as a manipulation tool to get what they want, to fill that need, to control or try to control another human being. And now you're seeing two separate sick relationship, or two separate sick individuals as far as when it comes to mental health go, because usually in order for the person to be successful in using emotional relationships and sex and that type of stuff to be effective, they have to be in a relationship with somebody who it's effective with. And so you get the yin and the yang, if you will, of a dysfunctional relationship. You've got the one individual who's, if you go back to the earlier characteristics, they're the one individual that has a fear of abandonment and loneliness, or some type of sexual emotional deprivation. They confuse love with physical and sexual attraction and needing to feel needed. Maybe they're a rescuer and they're together with somebody who needs to be rescued. And so that person who has those abandonment issues, the loneliness, the confusion of sex and emotional high from a new relationship, they hook up with somebody who could possibly use sex and emotional relationships involvement for their own manipulative needs, but yet it fills the other person's needs and that hole inside as well. So you get two people who feed off each other in a very, very sick and very troublesome and chaotic and very toxic relationship. The next one is individuals who become completely immobilized or seriously distracted by romantic or sexual obsessions or fantasies. This is the person who they get involved in a relationship, and that is all they do. It's 100% that person. Their jobs may suffer, their relationship with their family, with other people, co-workers, lifetime friends, or just regular friends. Responsibilities around the house, responsibilities outside of the house, maybe even bills. Whatever it is, this individual becomes so infatuated and they end up becoming immobilized of being able to do anything else, that every waking moment and every thought in their head, the first one is the other person that they're in a relationship with. And they may have fantasies about it, of what they hope it looks like. Maybe it's that rescuer-rescuee. The rescuer is looking at the bad boy or the bad girl, and they have this fantasy of what the relationship's going to look like and what it should look like. And that's all they can think of. And they're going to put all the effort and all the energy into trying to get that relationship and that person to be the way they are. And if they could just fix that person, if they could just make that person the way they want it to, then all will be right with the world. And then they'll feel complete inside, and their life will be great. And then it goes bad. And the chaos, and the toxicity, and the yelling and screaming, and the hurts, and the destructiveness. And then the pattern just keeps repeating over and over and over again. Another one is that you may see them avoid responsibility for themselves. And you may see the person who, they get attached to someone who's emotionally unavailable. And what I mean by that is maybe, the woman gets attached to a guy who he's not there for any other reason but physical intimacy. He is emotionally detached. He'll never become emotionally attached with her. And she just keeps pouring in and pouring in and pouring in. And she's using sex to try to manipulate him into giving an emotional attraction back to her and connection. And it never works. And she gets hurt. And he gets annoyed. And he breaks up with her or pushes her away. And then she comes back. And he takes her back because he's getting a physical need met. And this sick cycle, this unhealthy cycle just keeps going back and forth, that insanity of it. All behavior serves a purpose. Why is she doing that? Why is he doing that? What need is it that they're trying to fill? What hole is it that they're trying to fill? Because there's something there. Or they wouldn't do it. All behavior serves a purpose. So we're going to take our last break for the show. And when we come back, I'll wrap up the characteristics of love, relationship, and sex addicts. So come on back. You're listening to Surrender to Win on Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
Hey, this is Coach Coleman, and I'm the play-by-play voice for your Bethany Broncos. I know there's a lot of guys out there who are trying to kick that nasty tobacco dipping habit, and I know most guys need a little energy boost to try to get them through a long day. And I'm here to give you a solution for both. Grinds Coffee Pouches. Grinds are coffee-filled pouches infused with your favorite flavors, such as wintergreen, mint, vanilla, and many more. All of the ingredients and grinds are 100% safe for consumption and will add a pep to your step. So head on over to getgrinds.com and use our promo code CMI15 to get 15% off your order today. Again, that's getgrinds.com and use the promo code CMI15 to get 15% off of your order. It's time to rise and grinds with Grinds today.
Whether you need a professional writer to build or expand your online presence, or fresh new designs and new perspective to build your business, where do you start? Tales from the Click Media is committed to telling your story in a way that promotes business growth, consistent branding, and long-term success. So whether you have 1 or 100 employees, no tale is too small to tell. Call us today at 405-620-6200 or visit our website at talesfromtheclickmedia.com.
If you love listening to Crossover Radio, download the Crossover Radio app, available on all major platforms. It's absolutely free to our listeners, and you can connect with us and listen on the go. Crossover Radio. It's radio with a purpose.
You're listening to Surrender to Win with your host, Brian Anderson, on Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose.
Had you on my mind, I had a little time.
And welcome back. We're going to finish up talking about those characteristics of love and relationship and sex addicts. Maybe we all know one. Maybe you are one. You know, I was told one time when I was going through treatment that, hey, are you willing to look at yourself, Brian? Are you willing to take a look and be willing to identify that you're not perfect? You're a human being. You know, and as this song says right here, you know, we all have scars. And we develop all kinds of things, all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of actions, all kinds of things to try and, you know, soften those scars, to try and cover up that pain. Unfortunately, a lot of that behavior isn't healthy, and it never turns out well for us. So as we finish up, I left off on, you know, people who, you know, they avoid responsibility for themselves. They attach themselves to people who are emotionally unavailable. And so the next one we look at is the person who has wow, that was fun. The person who has a relationship, a love, a sex addiction, they will often stay enslaved emotionally to somebody else. They have an emotional dependence. They'll have a romantic intrigue or they have compulsive sexual activities. They truly confuse the act of sexual intimacy with love. And it's just simply not true. This society has it backwards. The world has it backwards. You know, physical intimacy does not equal love. You know, physical intimacy is something that you do in marriage with somebody that you do love. It is a form of love. It is an act of love. And society has it backwards. And it is my belief that the majority of this world, to include myself, I'm not exempt from any of this either, but the majority of this world has some type of you know, I don't know if you want to say addiction, but they have some type of negative behavior, some type of you know, a habit, an addiction, something that we have used either as a defense mechanism from pain or to fill a gap or a hole inside our heart. I think part of that is just the fact of being a human being. And so none of us are going to be immune from that. None of us are going to be exempt from that. I'm not trying to insinuate that we should be. But one of the many things that I've done with my life, and many people that I know of who are associated with me in my life, is they were just like me, and I was just like them, in that I had something going on in my life, behavior-wise, and for me the list is a mile long. Part of mine was, alcohol abuse and prescription pain medication abuse and benzodiazepine abuse for anxiety and panic attacks, etc. So I had that going on. But I also had a tremendous amount of behavioral issues. And so I am by no means exempt from anything that I talk about here. Fortunately for me, I was able to go to Rob's Ranch here, where I am blessed to work at today, and I had 90 days to take a look at myself. I had 90 days to truly decide, is this the life I want to live? Do I want to continue in this pain? Do I want to continue to feel empty inside? And the resounding answer was, no, I didn't. But I didn't know how to get out of it. So I just listened. And I was told things that made me uncomfortable, and I was told things that hurt. The truth that I had to face sometimes was very uncomfortable. But I was willing to at least take a look at myself with a level of honesty I don't know if I ever had done before. And when I did that, I started recognizing behavioral patterns that did not result in good outcomes. And I wanted to change it. So I listened, and I was willing to do things that other people told me to do. And then ultimately for me, gratefully for me, I found Jesus Christ, and I surrendered my life, and I said, I give up. I can't do life anymore like this. I'm horrible at trying to come up with the answer. I have a constant hole in my heart that I can't find anything to fill it. I give up. And at that moment when I finally said, I surrender, I give up, my life changed. And it wasn't perfect from the moment, right then and there. But slowly over time, my life started changing. And it continues to get better and better and better. So the last couple here I've got here is an individual with the love and relationship and sex addiction. They often want to avoid feelings of being vulnerable. And they may retreat from all types of intimate involvement. And they'll mistake that sexual and emotional anorexia for recovery from all these bad relationships they had. And you'll hear, I'm done with men. Oh, I'm done with women. I'm being by myself. I ain't messing with this at all. And so they'll have a behavior that comes out in, a sexual or emotional anorexia. They starve themselves. God created us. People made us to be a social creature. They made us. God made us to have, contact with each other. Look, the worst punishment you can get in prison is solitary confinement. That's for a reason. We're not meant to be alone. But so often we find ourselves in such horrible, toxic relationships that we think really the only other alternative, the only other option is, well, I'll just be completely abstinent from any type of relationship. And that doesn't work either, because we're going to be emotionally deprived. We're going to be emotionally hurt. And so the complete opposite of somebody who's in all these toxic relationships and using sex as a manipulation and continually to repeat the cycle over and over again is the the complete deprivation, the complete abstinence from any type of emotional or physical intimate relationship. And I even see this inside married couples, which is just such a tragic thing, is that they're married only in name and maybe on paper. And that's it. And they withhold emotional intimacy from each other. They withhold any type of physical intimacy with each other. And that's just not how we were meant. That's just not how God wanted a husband and wife to be. The last one here is maybe the person with that relationship and love and sex addiction, they assign magical qualities to the other person. They idealize them and they constantly pursue them. And, they may even blame them for not fulfilling their fantasies or expectations when they do get them. So I create this magical fantasy of what my life would be like with this person that I'm just completely infatuated with, that I have dumped all of my energies and my thoughts into. I'm immobilized, as the other characteristics I talked about were. That's all I do is focus on that person, and I give them magical qualities. They're the greatest thing ever. They are the antidote to the misery of life. And maybe I finally get into a relationship with that person. And then reality hits. And I see that this person is just a human being like everybody else. They have their faults, they have their strengths, they have their qualities. But they're just a human being with all the same failings that human beings have. And so I get resentment towards them. I blame them for not fulfilling my needs. And then the person goes on and does it again. Finds another person, usually really fast. And, they have a physical relationship with them really, really fast. And they dump all this emotional stuff on them really, really fast. And they create this fantasy, and they create the magical thinking of what this person's supposed to look like and how this person's supposed to act. And when the person doesn't, bam, they blame them, resentment towards them for not fulfilling your expectations. And the cycle keeps going over and over again. The definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome, and nothing changes. It's absolutely insane. So I hope as we've gone through this that if some of these apply to you, that you take a look at them and you choose to do something different. That you say, you know what, I've had enough. I want to change my life. And I promise you, if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to be honest about it, you can change your life. The life doesn't have to be miserable. When I was in treatment, my counselor told me, Brian, you don't have to stay in this misery and pain anymore. But you're going to have to do something to get out of it. You're going to have to get honest, and you're going to have to work. And man, I tell you what, ever since I've done that, life has been unbelievably amazing. Hey, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Good Friday, and I hope you guys have a great Easter. He has truly risen. Come see me next week on Surrender to Win. Have a great weekend, guys.
If you or someone you know is struggling with substance abuse, call Rob's Ranch today, 405-253-3838.
Online at robsranch.org or find him on Facebook at Rob's Ranch.